Commander Vexillar stood on the bridge of his command ship, staring at the tactical display with tired eyes. The red markers showing enemy positions outnumbered the blue ones showing his fleet by 3-1. It had been this way for months now. Every day brought more losses, more retreat, more failure. The Kryn horde was winning the war, and everyone knew it. Vexillar had served in the Confederation military for 40 cycles. He had seen many battles, commanded thousands of ships, earned medals and respect from 7 different species. But nothing in his long career had prepared him for the Kryn. They were brutal, efficient, and seemingly endless. Their ships kept coming, wave after wave, pushing deeper into Confederation space. "Sir, another supply convoy has been delayed," his second officer reported. "The Eastern Fleet is down to 3 days of ammunition." Vexillar nodded slowly. He had heard similar reports all week. The Confederation was dying, piece by piece. Some species were already talking about surrender. The proud alliance that had kept peace for 200 cycles was crumbling. A sudden beep from the communication station made everyone turn. "Commander, we have incoming vessels at the jump gate," the officer announced. "Signature unknown. Wait, they're transmitting Confederation codes." "On screen," Vexillar ordered. The display changed, showing 3 ships emerging from the swirling energy of the jump gate. Vexillar leaned forward, studying them carefully. The vessels looked strange, unlike any military design he recognized. Their hulls were covered with odd attachments and modifications. Some sections looked like they had been welded on recently. They moved in a loose formation that seemed almost casual. "I'm receiving a hail, sir. They identify themselves as human vessels." Vexillar felt a flutter of something in his chest. Hope, maybe, or perhaps just curiosity. He had heard the name before. Humans were a newly discovered species, found only 6 cycles ago on the Outer Rim. They had joined the Confederation recently, but most species considered them primitive. Their technology was basic, their ships slow, their military experience limited to fighting each other on their single planet. "Put them through," Vexillar said. The screen flickered, and a human face appeared. The creature was small compared to Vexillar's people, with smooth skin and strange, short fur only on top of its head. The human wore a dark blue uniform with insignia Vexillar didn't recognize. "This is Commander Jake Peterson of the Earth Space Navy," the human said. His voice was calm and steady. "We're here to help with your Kryn problem." Vexillar heard someone laugh quietly behind him. He couldn't blame them. 3 small, cobbled-together ships were going to help? Against the entire Kryn horde? "Commander Peterson," Vexillar replied, keeping his voice neutral. "Your assistance is welcome. However, I should inform you that the situation is quite serious. We have lost significant forces, and the enemy is well-equipped and numerous." "We read the briefing on the way here," Peterson said. "That's why we came." Another voice joined the conversation, and the screen split to show a female human. "I'm Lieutenant Sophie Grant, Tactical Officer. We'd like to review your defense positions and current enemy movements. The sooner we can coordinate, the better." "Of course," Vexillar said. "I'll have my staff prepare." "Also," Peterson interrupted, "we'd like to take forward positions. Put us between your main fleet and the most likely attack vector." Silence filled the bridge. Vexillar stared at the human commander. Forward positions meant first contact with enemy forces. It meant taking the heaviest fire, the worst damage, the highest casualties. It was where ships went to die. "Commander Peterson, perhaps you don't understand the risk," Vexillar began carefully. "Forward positions face overwhelming odds. We typically rotate our strongest and most experienced ships through those sectors." "We understand perfectly," Peterson said. "That's where we can do the most good." "They want to die quickly," someone muttered in the back of the bridge. Peterson's expression didn't change, but Vexillar thought he saw something flicker in the human's eyes, something cold and hard. "We don't plan on dying at all," Peterson said quietly. "We plan on winning." Before Vexillar could respond, a third transmission joined. An older human male with a scarred face appeared on screen. Captain Dan Hughes here, commanding ESS Denver. Peterson, stop scaring the poor aliens. Commander Vexillar, we're ready to receive tactical data whenever you're ready to send it. My crew hasn't had a good fight in 6 months, and they're getting bored. Vexillar felt a strange sensation in his chest. These humans were either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. He wasn't sure which. Very well, he said finally. I'll send coordinates for forward position 7. It's been hit hard 3 times this week. The last ship we stationed there lasted 4 hours. Perfect, Peterson said. We'll take it. The transmission ended, and the human ships began moving toward their assigned position. Vexillar watched them go, feeling uneasy. Around him, his bridge crew exchanged glances and whispered comments. Most thought the humans would be destroyed in their first engagement. A few felt sorry for them. No one expected them to make any real difference. Should we send a recovery team to that sector? His second officer asked quietly. To retrieve survivors after the humans fail? Vexillar thought about it for a long moment. He remembered the look in Peterson's eyes, that cold, hard certainty. No, he said slowly. Let's wait and see what happens first. That night, Vexillar couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the 3 human ships, sitting alone in the dark between his fleet and the Kryn. He had sent many crews to their deaths during this war, but it always weighed on him. These humans had volunteered, had insisted on the most dangerous position, and he had let them go. He pulled up files on humanity, reading everything the Confederation had gathered about them. The information was limited. They were from a planet called Earth, a world with extreme weather, dangerous wildlife, and a history of constant warfare among their own kind. They had nearly destroyed themselves several times with their own weapons. The file noted that humans were considered emotionally unstable, prone to irrational decisions, and poorly suited for modern warfare. The assessment recommended using them for support roles only. Vexillar closed the file and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 3 small ships full of supposedly primitive aliens were waiting for the Kryn to attack. He hoped they would at least die quickly. It seemed like the kindest outcome. He had no idea how wrong he was. The attack came 2 days later. Vexillar was reviewing supply reports when the alarms started screaming. His crew rushed to their stations, and the tactical display lit up with red markers. Lots of them. Kryn Attack Force, Sector 9. His tactical officer shouted. 12 warships, heading for the supply convoy at Epsilon Relay. Vexillar felt his blood run cold. The convoy carried ammunition and medical supplies for 3 different fleets. If it was destroyed, thousands would die from lack of resources within a week. But his main fleet was too far away to reach it in time. How long until we can intercept? He demanded. 2 hours, sir. The convoy will be destroyed in 40 minutes. Vexillar slammed his fist on the console. They were going to lose another convoy, and there was nothing he could do about it. He pulled up the tactical map, looking for any ships close enough to help. There was only one group in range, the 3 human ships at forward position 7. Get me Commander Peterson, he ordered. The human's face appeared on screen within seconds. Behind him, Vexillar could see crew members rushing around, alarms blaring. They had already detected the attack. We see them, Peterson said, before Vexillar could speak. We're moving to intercept. Commander, there are 12 Kryn warships. You have 3 ships. This is a suicide mission. Probably, Peterson agreed calmly. But that convoy needs to survive, and we're the only ones who can reach it. We'll do what we can. The transmission ended. On the tactical display, Vexillar watched the 3 blue markers representing human ships change course, accelerating hard toward the incoming red markers. They were moving faster than he expected, burning their engines at rates that would damage most ships. Get me visual feed from the convoy, Vexillar ordered. I want to see this. The screen changed, showing the view from a convoy escort ship. In the distance, the Kryn vessels appeared as dark shapes against the stars. They were massive, heavily armed, and built for destruction. The convoy ships were already trying to scatter, but they were slow cargo haulers with minimal weapons. Then the human ships arrived. What Vexillar saw made no sense. The three human vessels didn't form a defensive line or try to create a protective formation around the convoy. Instead, they split up and charged straight at the Kryn ships at maximum speed. Music was playing on their open communication channel. Loud, rhythmic music with heavy beats and screaming vocals. "What are they doing?" someone on the bridge whispered. The first human ship, Peterson's ESS Horizon, flew directly toward the largest Kryn warship. The Kryn opened fire, and Vexillar watched the human ship's shields flare and fail under the barrage. Any sensible commander would retreat at that point. Peterson kept going. Just before collision, the Horizon spun sideways and fired all weapons at point-blank range into the Kryn ship's flank. The angle was insane. The maneuver should have been impossible at that speed, but somehow the human pilot managed it. The Kryn vessel's armor cracked, atmosphere venting into space. The second human ship, Captain Hughes's ESS Denver, did something even stranger. It appeared to be fleeing, engines burning hard away from the battle. Three Kryn ships broke formation to pursue it. They chased it for almost a minute, closing distance, preparing to fire. Then the Denver stopped. Not slowed down, stopped. Full reverse thrust at maximum power. The sudden deceleration was so violent that Vexillar could see pieces of the hull breaking off. The pursuing Kryn ships, unable to stop as quickly, flew right past it. The Denver opened fire from behind, hitting all three Kryn vessels before they could turn around. One of them exploded. The other two were crippled. "They used themselves as bait," Vexillar said in amazement. The third human ship, ESS Liberty, was engaged with 4 Kryn vessels at once. Its shields were gone, its hull was burning in several places, but it kept firing. Then something happened that made Vexillar's jaw drop. The Liberty deliberately rammed one of the Kryn ships. Not a full collision, but a grinding sideways impact that tore open both hulls. Before anyone could process what was happening, human soldiers in armored suits were jumping from the Liberty through the breach into the Kryn ship. "They're boarding," Vexillar's tactical officer shouted. "During a space battle? That's insane." But it was working. The Kryn ship suddenly stopped firing, its weapons going silent as chaos erupted inside it. The remaining 3 Kryn vessels tried to help their companion, but the damaged Liberty kept firing, forcing them to keep their distance. Meanwhile, Peterson's Horizon was engaged with 2 Kryn ships at once. His vessel was taking heavy damage, pieces of armor breaking off with each hit. Vexillar was certain the humans would retreat now. They had done more than anyone expected, bought the convoy valuable time. Instead, the Horizon vented its entire atmosphere supply out one side, using the explosive decompression to spin the ship around faster than its damaged thrusters could manage. The maneuver worked. The Horizon came around firing, hitting both Kryn ships from an angle they hadn't protected. "Sir, the Liberty has been disabled," the tactical officer reported. "Life support failing." Vexillar watched the dying human ship on his screen. The boarding party was still inside the Kryn vessel, but their own ship was finished. He was about to order a rescue mission when something bizarre happened. The captured Kryn ship's engines fired up, and it turned to aim at another Kryn vessel. "The humans took control of it," someone breathed. The captured ship opened fire on its former allies. The message was clear. The humans weren't giving up. They were fighting even when their own ships were destroyed. The battle lasted another 20 minutes. By the end, 7 Kryn warships were destroyed or crippled. The remaining 5 retreated, something Vexillar had rarely seen Kryn forces do. The convoy was safe, but the cost was heavy. The Liberty was destroyed. The Denver was barely functional. The Horizon had taken so much damage that it could barely maintain orbit. Vexillar ordered immediate rescue and repair operations. His ships raced to the battlefield, pulling surviving human crew members from the wreckage. Medical teams worked frantically on the wounded. 6 hours later, Commander Peterson came aboard Vexillar's ship in person. The human looked tired. His uniform was torn, and he had a bandage on his forehead. But he was alive, and he was smiling. The convoy made it through, Peterson said. That's what matters. Vexillar stared at him. You lost one ship and crippled another. 43 of your people died. How can you smile? Because we saved over 5,000 lives on that convoy, Peterson replied. His smile faded. Don't misunderstand, Commander. We mourn our dead, every single one. But we also honor what they died for. That convoy will keep your people fighting. That's worth the price. Your tactics were insane, Vexillar said. Ramming enemy ships, boarding during a space battle, using your own atmosphere as a weapon. This goes against every standard military doctrine in the Confederation. I know, Peterson said. That's why it worked. The Kryn have fought your people for years. They know how you fight, what you'll do, where your limits are. But they don't know us yet. And by the time they figure us out, we'll have changed tactics again. He held out a data chip. This has recordings of the battle and analysis of what we learned about Kryn weak points. Maybe it'll help your other commanders. Vexillar took the chip slowly. Where did you learn to fight like this? Peterson's expression grew dark. We learned by fighting each other, Commander. Humans have been at war for our entire history. We've fought over everything. Land, resources, beliefs, pride. We've killed each other with every weapon we could imagine. We nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times. He paused, looking out at the stars. Every tactic we use today, we learned from fighting other humans. We know how to be brutal because we've been brutal to each other. The Kryn are dangerous, yes. But we've faced worse. We've faced ourselves. Vexillar felt a chill run through him. He had thought the humans were brave or reckless. Now he was starting to understand they were something else entirely. They were experienced in a way no other species in the Confederation could understand. 2 weeks after the convoy battle, everything changed. More human ships arrived from Earth. Not 3 this time, but 30. They spread out across the front line in small groups, and they started hunting. Vexillar was assigned to coordinate with Captain Dan Hughes and the repaired ESS Denver. The old human captain taught him things about warfare that disturbed him deeply. War isn't just about destroying ships, Hughes explained one evening as they reviewed battle plans. It's about breaking your enemy's will to fight. You have to get inside their heads, make them afraid, make them doubt themselves. We don't practice psychological warfare, Vexillar said. It's considered dishonorable. Hughes laughed, though there was no humor in it. Honor is a luxury you can afford when you're winning. When you're desperate, you use every weapon you have, and fear is a very effective weapon. The humans proved this in brutal fashion. They started broadcasting recordings of previous battles on Kryn communication frequencies. The Kryn couldn't block it without shutting down their entire network. So every Kryn ship had to listen to the sounds of their comrades dying, human music playing over the screams, human laughter echoing through the dark. They left destroyed Kryn vessels intact, floating in space with messages painted on the hulls in Kryn script. Simple messages: run or turn back or this is mercy, next time won't be. They attacked in complete silence. No warnings, no transmissions, just sudden overwhelming violence. Then they would leave, vanishing before Kryn reinforcements could arrive. The Kryn never knew when or where humans would strike next. The effect was devastating. Vexillar intercepted Kryn communications, showing their forces arguing with each other. Commanders were refusing orders, claiming certain sectors were cursed by the Mad Ones. Supply lines were disrupted because Kryn ships wouldn't travel through areas where humans had been spotted. They're breaking, Hughes said with satisfaction. Another month of this, and they'll be too scared to fight. But the cost was terrible. The humans lost ships every week. Their casualty rates were 3 times higher than any other Confederation force. Yet they kept coming, kept fighting, kept pushing deeper into Kryn territory. Vexillar watched a human memorial service one night. They held it on the flight deck of the Denver, hundreds of crew members standing in silence as names were read aloud. Each name was followed by the ringing of a bell. The ceremony lasted 2 hours. So many names, so many bells. Afterward, he found Lieutenant Sophie Grant standing alone, staring out at the stars. Her face was wet with tears. "Are you all right?" Vexillar asked quietly. "No," she said simply. "I'm not. I knew most of those people. I ate meals with them, joked with them, trained with them, and now they're gone." "Then why do you keep fighting?" She turned to look at him, and her eyes were hard despite the tears. "Because if we don't, more people die. The Kryn won't stop on their own. Someone has to stop them, and apparently that someone is us." "But the cost is necessary," she interrupted. "Do you know what we say in the human military? The only easy day was yesterday. Every day is hard. Every battle costs lives. But we do it anyway because the alternative is worse." A major battle happened at the Helix Nebula 3 days later. The Kryn had assembled a large fleet to escort a supply convoy of their own. 27 warships protecting 15 cargo vessels. The humans attacked with 8 ships. What followed was the strangest battle Vexillar had ever witnessed. The humans used civilian mining charges as missiles, launching them from makeshift tubes welded to their hulls. They converted cargo ships into fire ships, filling them with volatile chemicals and flying them at Kryn vessels on autopilot. They used asteroid fields like weapons, herding Kryn ships into fields of debris at high speed. Commander Kate Morrison pulled a maneuver that became legendary. Her ship, badly damaged and losing atmosphere, flew straight at a Kryn flagship. The Kryn assumed she was ramming and braced for impact. Instead, Morrison ejected her entire crew in escape pods at the last second and used the unmanned ship as a missile, detonating its reactor on impact. The explosion destroyed the flagship and disabled 3 other Kryn vessels. Morrison and her crew were picked up 30 minutes later by another human ship, already planning their next mission. The Kryn convoy was destroyed. The human forces lost 4 ships, but they accomplished their mission. That night, Vexillar confronted Hughes in the command center. "Your tactics are effective," he said carefully, "but they're also reckless. You take risks that no rational commander would consider. You sacrifice your own ships, your own people, for small gains." "Small gains?" Hughes looked at him sharply. "We just cut off a major Kryn supply line. Thousands of their soldiers will run out of ammunition within a week. That's not a small gain. That's strategic victory. But your casualty rates are acceptable," Hughes said flatly. "Look, Commander, I understand this bothers you. Your people fight clean wars with clear rules and minimal losses. That's admirable, but it's also why you were losing." He pulled up a display showing Kryn territory. "Before we arrived, the Kryn controlled 40% more space than they do now. They were advancing on 3 fronts. Your Confederation fleets were in full retreat. How long did your analysts think you could hold out? 6 months? A year?" Vexillar said nothing. The projections had actually been worse than that. "We fight dirty because fighting clean wasn't working," Hughes continued. "We take risks because playing safe meant losing slowly instead of winning. And yes, we lose people, good people. But we're turning this war around. In 2 months, we've done more damage to the Kryn than the Confederation did in 2 years. At what cost to yourselves?" Hughes was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer. "Every human who volunteered for this mission knew the risks. We all did. But we also knew that if we didn't help, the Confederation would fall. The Kryn would win, and millions would die or be enslaved. So we made a choice. Better some of us die fighting than all of you die without hope." He looked directly at Vexillar. "You want to know the scariest thing about humans, Commander? It's not our tactics, or our weapons, or our willingness to take risks. It's that we've done this to ourselves. Every war crime we commit against the Kryn, we learned by having it done to us by other humans. We know exactly how terrible war can be because we've experienced it all." He pulled out a small device and showed Vexillar images, cities destroyed by bombs, entire populations wiped out by weapons, human fighting human in brutal, endless conflicts. "This is what we're capable of," Hughes said quietly. "This is what we've done to our own species. We nearly destroyed ourselves 100 times. We created weapons that could end all life on our planet, and we came close to using them. We fought over land, over resources, over beliefs, over nothing at all. He put the device away. But we learned. We grew. We decided that if we could be this terrible to each other, we could also be this protective of others. We turned our worst traits into tools to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. That's why we fight the way we do. Not because we enjoy it, but because we know how to do it, and someone needs to. Vexlar felt cold. He had thought humans were brave allies. Now he was starting to understand they were something far more complex and frightening. They were survivors of their own darkness, carrying that knowledge like a weapon into the galaxy. The Kryn were retreating. After 3 months of constant human attacks, the enemy forces began pulling back from occupied systems. They abandoned forward bases and withdrew their fleets. It was unprecedented. The Confederation leadership called emergency meetings to discuss terms for a peace treaty. That's when Commander Jake Peterson proposed something that horrified everyone. "We don't negotiate," Peterson said to the assembled council. "We end this permanently." Vexlar was present at the meeting, representing the military perspective. He watched the council members react with shock and confusion. "What exactly do you mean?" the Theron ambassador asked. "I mean we strike their homeworld," Peterson said calmly. "We take the war to their capital, show them what happens when they threaten peaceful species, and make sure they never do it again." The room erupted in chaos. Voices shouted over each other in a dozen languages. The idea was unthinkable. The Confederation had fought defensive wars for generations. They had never practiced offensive warfare on this scale. Attacking a homeworld was beyond consideration. "This is barbaric," someone shouted. "This is necessary," Peterson replied coldly. "If we let them retreat and regroup, they'll be back in 5 years, stronger and more prepared. We have momentum now. We have them scared. We finish it." "The cost in lives would be enormous," another council member argued. "The cost of not doing it will be worse," Peterson said. "How many cycles do you want this war to last? How many more convoys destroyed? How many more worlds occupied? We can end it now in one decisive strike, or we can fight them for generations. Choose." The council voted. Most species voted against the offensive. They wanted peace, wanted negotiation, wanted the killing to stop. The humans didn't care about the vote. "We're going anyway," Peterson announced. "With or without Confederation approval. This started as your war, but we've been bleeding for it for months. We'll finish it our way." Vexlar found himself in Peterson's office hours later. The human commander was studying star charts of Kryn space, plotting routes through enemy territory. "You're really going to do this?" Vexlar said. It wasn't a question. "Yes. It's suicide. The Kryn homeworld is protected by 3 massive orbital fortresses. Their entire remaining fleet will be there. You'll be outnumbered 10-1. Peterson looked up from his charts. "Then come with us. Bring ships, bring soldiers, bring whatever you can spare. Or don't. We're going either way." "Why?" Vexlar demanded. "Why risk everything on this one attack?" "Because I've studied history, Commander. My history, specifically. You know how many wars humanity fought that dragged on for years, decades, even generations? Too many. You know why they lasted so long? Because we didn't finish them. We'd win battles, push enemies back, then stop. We'd negotiate, we'd compromise, we'd leave threats alive because destroying them completely seemed too harsh. And you know what happened? The wars came back. The enemies rebuilt. More people died." He pointed at the star chart showing Kryn space. "I won't make that mistake. The Kryn started this war. They invaded Confederation space, destroyed civilian worlds, killed millions. They need to understand, completely and permanently, that this can never happen again. The only way to ensure that is to break them so thoroughly that they won't dare try." "That's not justice," Vexlar said quietly. "That's revenge." "No," Peterson said. "Revenge would be destroying their entire species. We're just going to knock down their door, bloody their nose, and make them remember what happens when you pick fights you can't win. That's not revenge. That's education." 3 days later, the human fleet launched its attack. 50 ships, reinforced from Earth, carrying thousands of soldiers. And to Vexillar's surprise, they invited him to join them. "You should see how this ends," Peterson said. "Witness what we do, so you can tell the Confederation whether they should ever fear us." Vexillar joined with a small observation fleet. Other Confederation species sent representatives too, curious or horrified or both. The journey through Krynn space took 6 days. The humans moved like ghosts, maintaining complete silence, hiding in asteroid fields and behind moons. They sent small teams ahead as scouts, using captured Krynn shuttles to move through enemy territory undetected. They learned patrol routes, defense patterns, weak points. When they reached the Krynn homeworld, Vexillar understood why everyone had called this mission impossible. The planet was enormous, protected by 3 orbital fortresses that bristled with weapons. Each fortress could destroy a fleet on its own. Together, they were unstoppable. The Krynn home fleet surrounded the fortresses, 200 warships ready to defend their world. The humans didn't hesitate. They split into 3 strike forces and attacked all 3 fortresses simultaneously. What followed was the most violent battle Vexillar had ever witnessed. Captain Lauren Hayes led Marine teams in a direct assault on the northern fortress. They flew boarding pods straight at the structure, smashing through defensive fire and embedding themselves in the fortress hull. Hayes and her soldiers fought their way inside, room by room, deck by deck. The fighting was brutal and close. Hand-to-hand combat in corridors, firefights in reactor rooms, desperate struggles for control of weapon systems. Commander Tyler Ross took the ESS Horizon on what everyone thought was a suicide run at the Western Fortress. He flew straight at its main cannon, the weapon that could destroy capital ships with a single shot. The cannon fired. The Horizon took the hit and kept coming, its hull burning, pieces breaking off but still flying. At the last second, Ross and his crew ejected in escape pods, and the Horizon crashed into the cannon, destroying it. Captain Nicole Sanders commanded the attack on the southern fortress. Her ship was disabled by defensive fire halfway through the approach. Rather than retreat, she ordered her crew to abandon ship, then manually piloted the vessel into the fortress reactor. The resulting explosion was visible from the planet's surface. The 3 fortresses fell within an hour. The Krynn home fleet tried to respond, but they were in chaos. They had never faced an attack like this, never seen anyone fight with such disregard for their own survival. Human ships pressed attacks even when crippled. Human soldiers kept fighting even when wounded. It was like facing a force that couldn't be stopped by normal means. Vexillar watched it all, unable to look away. Part of him was amazed. Part of him was disgusted. Part of him was terrified. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, the 3 fortresses were debris fields. The Krynn home fleet was scattered and broken. And the human forces had taken control of the orbital space around the Krynn homeworld. Then Peterson did something unexpected. He broadcast a message to the planet's surface. Vexillar listened to it with the rest of the Confederation observers. "People of the Krynn," Peterson's voice said, "your military has been defeated. Your fortresses have fallen. Your fleet has surrendered. This war is over. We could destroy your homeworld. We have the weapons and the position to do it. But we won't. We didn't come here to commit genocide. We came here to deliver a message." He paused. "The Confederation is protected. Every species in it is under our protection now. If you threaten them again, we will return. And next time, we won't stop at your fortresses. Tell this to your children. Tell this to your leaders. Tell this to anyone who thinks about starting another war. We are humanity, and we protect our friends. Remember that." The transmission ended. The Krynn government surrendered within an hour. Vexillar sat in his command chair, trying to process what he had witnessed. Around him, other Confederation observers were equally silent. They had seen humans fight before, had seen their brutal tactics and reckless courage. But this was different. This was humanity showing what they were truly capable of when they decided to end something permanently. 3 months after the war ended, Vexillar stood before the Confederation Council, preparing to give the most important speech of his life. The Great Hall was filled with representatives from all member species. They had gathered to honor the human forces for their role in defeating the Kryn. Medals would be awarded, treaties would be signed, and speeches would be made celebrating victory and peace. But Vexillar had been asked to speak first, to provide the military perspective on humanity's contribution. He had spent weeks preparing his remarks, writing and rewriting, trying to find the right words. Now, standing at the podium with thousands of eyes watching him, he felt the weight of what he needed to say. "Members of the council, honored guests, fellow soldiers," he began. "I have been asked to speak about the humans and their role in our victory over the Kryn. Many of you expect me to praise their courage, their sacrifice, their willingness to help us in our darkest hour, and I will do those things because they are true." He paused, looking around the hall. "But I must also tell you the truth that many don't want to hear, the truth that keeps me awake at night, the truth that every species in this confederation needs to understand." The hall grew quiet. Vexillar took a breath. "We should all be terrified of humanity." Shocked murmurs rippled through the crowd. Vexillar held up a hand for silence. "I don't say this as an insult. I say it as a statement of fact. I have fought alongside humans for 4 months. I have watched them fight, watched them die, watched them win. And in that time, I have come to understand something that chills me to my core." He activated a display showing battle recordings, human ships ramming Kryn vessels, Marines boarding enemy stations through hull breaches, vessels flying at full speed through fields of fire that should have destroyed them. "Humans are not feared because they are the strongest or most advanced species," Vexillar continued. "They are not feared because they have the best weapons or the fastest ships. They are feared because they understand violence in a way that we do not. They have mastered warfare through 10,000 years of fighting themselves." He changed the display to show images from human history, wars that lasted generations, weapons that could destroy entire cities, conflicts that killed millions. "Look at these images. These are not battles against aliens or monsters. These are humans fighting other humans. They did this to themselves over and over across their entire history. They created weapons capable of destroying their own planet, and they came very close to using them. They fought wars so brutal that the casualties numbered in the tens of millions, and they learned from every single one of those conflicts." Vexillar looked directly at Jake Peterson, who sat in the front row. The human commander met his gaze steadily. "Commander Peterson once told me that every tactic his people used against the Kryn, they had first learned by having it used on them by other humans. Think about what that means. The boarding actions, the psychological warfare, the willingness to sacrifice ships and lives for strategic advantage, all of it came from experience. Human experience. They are veterans of wars we cannot imagine, carrying knowledge paid for in the blood of their own people." He changed the display again, showing the attack on the Kryn homeworld, the fortresses falling, the fleet scattering, the overwhelming violence of the assault. This is what humans are capable of when they decide to end something permanently. They don't fight wars to gain advantage or secure resources. They fight wars to completely break their enemies, to ensure the threat never returns. And they do it efficiently, brutally, and with absolute commitment. Some council members looked uncomfortable. Others looked angry. Vexillar didn't care. This needed to be said. "But here is the other truth, the one that gives me hope," he said, his voice softening. "Humans chose not to use their full capability against the Kryn. They could have destroyed the homeworld. They had the position and the weapons to do it. But they stopped. They delivered their message and withdrew. They showed mercy." He looked around the hall again. "Do you understand what that means? It means that humans have touched the darkness, have explored the depths of violence and destruction, and they chose to step back. They know exactly how terrible they can be. and they consciously decide not to be that terrible unless absolutely necessary. Vexillar called up the final image, a human memorial service with hundreds of crew members standing in silence as names were read. I have watched humans mourn their dead. I have seen them cry. I have heard them talk about the people they lost, the friends who won't come home. They feel loss as deeply as any of us, but they fight anyway, because they believe some things are worth dying for. Protecting others is one of those things. He stepped closer to the edge of the podium. When the Kryn invaded, the Confederation was losing. We were weeks away from considering surrender. Our fleets were broken, our supplies exhausted, our morale shattered. Then humans arrived, a species we barely knew, with no obligation to help us. And they fought. They bled. They died. Not for their own worlds, but for ours. Not for their own people, but for strangers who had shown them nothing but skepticism. Vexillar's voice grew stronger. So yes, we should fear humans. We should fear their capability, their knowledge of warfare, their willingness to do what others won't. But we should also be grateful beyond measure that they chose to be our friends instead of our enemies. Because I have seen what they do to their enemies, and I never want the Confederation to be on that side of human determination. He looked directly at Peterson again. Commander, you once asked me if I thought the Confederation should fear humanity. My answer is yes. Every species in this galaxy should fear you. You are dangerous in ways we are only beginning to understand. But you are also the most loyal friends anyone could hope for. You proved that by risking everything to help us. Peterson nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. Vexillar turned back to the Council. I propose that humanity be granted full military partnership in the Confederation. I propose that we work with them to establish new defense strategies, incorporating their unique perspective on warfare. And I propose that we ensure, through treaty and friendship, that humanity never has reason to turn their capabilities against us. He paused one last time. Because if they ever become our enemies, I don't believe we would survive. That is not an insult. It is the highest form of respect I can offer. Fear them, honor them, and above all, keep them as friends. Vexillar stepped down from the podium. The hall was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, the applause began. It was not the enthusiastic cheering he had heard at other ceremonies. It was something deeper, more thoughtful. The sound of people who understood they had just learned something important, something that changed how they saw the galaxy. Later that evening, Vexillar found Peterson standing alone on an observation deck, looking out at the stars. He joined the human in silence for a few minutes. That was quite a speech, Peterson said finally. It was the truth. A harsh truth, Peterson acknowledged. Some of your people looked scared. They should be. I meant what I said, Commander. You are the most dangerous species I've ever encountered. And that bothers you. Yes, Vexillar admitted. But what bothers me more is that I'm grateful for it. Without your dangerous nature, my people would be slaves or dead. That's a difficult thing to reconcile. Peterson smiled slightly. Welcome to how humans feel about ourselves. We know what we're capable of. We know the darkness we carry. It bothers us too. But we've learned to use it, to channel it toward protecting others instead of destroying ourselves. That's the best we can do. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object. It was a pin bearing the symbol of Earth, a small blue planet surrounded by stars. He handed it to Vexillar. Lieutenant Grant wanted you to have this, Peterson said. She said you've earned the right to understand humans. This is our homeworld, small, dangerous, beautiful. It made us what we are. And what we are is simple. Survivors who decided that survival alone wasn't enough. We want others to survive too. Vexillar took the pin carefully. And if one day the Confederation and humanity come into conflict, what then? Peterson didn't look away from the stars. Then we would be the most dangerous enemy you've ever faced. I won't lie about that, Commander. We would fight with everything we have, use every lesson we've learned, employ every tactic we know. It would be terrible for both sides. He turned to look at Vexillar directly. That's why we work so hard to be good friends. That's why we will always choose talking over fighting, cooperation over conflict. Because we know what we're capable of. And we never want to unleash that on people we care about. Fear is a tool, Commander. But so is friendship. And we would much rather use the second one. Vexillar nodded slowly. He pinned the small Earth symbol to his uniform, right above his heart. Then let us ensure, Commander, that friendship is always the tool we choose. For all our sakes. Peterson extended his hand, and Vexillar clasped it in the human gesture of agreement. They stood together on the observation deck, looking out at the peaceful stars, both understanding that the galaxy had changed forever. Humanity had entered the stage, bringing with them the lessons of 10,000 years of warfare, and the Confederation would never be the same.